quality control, or in short, QC. Quality control is one of the most important parts of your production process. And you really need to pay attention to it and create your own process for quality control. What do you want to control? How you want to control it? To what level you want to control it? Where do you want to have the checkpoints to check these things? These are all things that you should create for your brand, and even more so specifically for product. What are the things to think of? So, first of all, let's look into when should you check quality. So there are three main stages during your production that you want to check your quality. First one is when all the materials are coming. They're in the factory, ready to be cut. This is before they're getting cut, before anything happened with these materials, before they are being used. You should check quality. And when I say you, I mean whether it's you, your team, a third-party inspection company that you might hire, or maybe a process that your factory has in-house. That you can decide what makes sense. But someone needs to check the raw materials before they are being used to make sure that you receive things that you needed, that there are no damages, and how to proceed from there. The second step is during production, in the middle of the process. So again, you, your team, an inspection, whoever it is, needs to check the process while the product is on the machines, while they're being sewn, or while they're being cut, or while they're being printed, whatever that is. And maybe in more than one point. It really depends on your product and what's involved in creating your product. For example, if you're creating a product that's being cut in one facility and then it's being sent to be printed somewhere and then it's sent to a factory to be sewn, there are different parts here. And you might want to create a process that at least check these products before they leave one facility and go into the other. So you're aware if there are any damages, because the last thing you want is that there's a damage or some defect in the product, in the fabrics, let's say, and all the vendors keep doing their processes and you only find it at the end. When it's too late, you spend the money, you spend the time just to find out at the end that something is wrong. So the more steps that your product goes through in order to be to accomplish it, you might want to think of more stages along the way, checkpoints to check quality. And the third part is at the end. When production is done, ready to be shipped, it could be packed already and you pick random pieces. It could be before it's being packed. It really depends on where you're producing it, the quantity that you're producing, and so on and so on and so on. But the reality is you want to think about these three stages in your production process and create checkpoints where you're going to check quality in these stages. Couple of things that will help you with quality control. One thing is the most important things when it comes to being on the same page with your manufacturer is to make sure that you and them have clear understanding. You're both on the same page as to what the standard of quality in production should be. And one of the best ways to do that is to have the factory create a pre-production sample. That sample that they're going to make is going to be the standard of what you're expecting them to follow for production. So they have something to compare to, you have something to compare to, or even if you send a third party or someone in your team to go and check quality during the process or the end of the process, that PP sample, that pre-production sample would be the standard that production will be compared to. So everybody's on the same page. The factory knows what they need to deliver. You know what you need to check. Another thing is once fabrics are cut and before they're going into sewing, you want to ask your factory to provide you with what we call TOP, top of production sample. The TOP, again, will be another level of checking and making sure that things in production are going according to plan. So when fabrics are cut, your factory can make one sample out of the cut goods with the trim and all the finishings that your sample should have on. Again, that will give you an idea if there are issues in the pattern, if there are issues in the fabrics, if there are issues in the sample and the sewing of the sample, and so on and so on. This is just another extra, very easy, very standardized way to make sure that the factory are doing their job and you have a way to check that. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that there is a standard way to check quality. And what I mean by that is, whether you produce 50 pieces or 5,000 pieces, the quality control for both will be different in the sense of how many units, according to standard or industry standard, you should be checking out of these 50 or out of this 5,000. Because 50, let's say, you can stand there half a day and check quality for each one of these pieces. But when it comes to bigger quantities, 1,000 or even a few hundreds, 5,000 and more, it's going to be impossible to go and check every piece in production. So there is a standardized value. It's called AQL. And AQL stands for Acceptable Quality Limit. And what that means is, it's basically an industry standard, and you can look it up, that will tell you for every size production how many pieces should be checked for quality control at the end of it. But even more so, how many damages, how many issues you're allowed or the factory allowed to have within that size of production. And if they have more damages than this number, production is failed or quality is failed, they have to fix it, something has to be done on it. If the amount of damages or issues with your product is under the number that's allowed, under the tolerance that's allowed, then even if there are a couple of damages, that's acceptable, that's fine, your production is ready and good to go. Following AQL will help your factory to understand the standards that you're setting up. It will help your team, the third-party inspection company, whoever it is that's going to do the quality, to also be on the same page and understand what is the level that they're allowing when it comes to quality control.